All right, guys, so today we're going to talk about how to find domain and range that's reasonable to a word problem. This first question says, Cody's Lawn Company is running a sale on mowing lawns in the neighborhood. The function f of x equals 20x describes the amount of money in dollars Cody will earn for mowing x lawns. He only has enough time this week to mow 50 lawns. So first we're going to name everything we know about the domain. First of all, domain is the independent variable, okay? So the independent variable here, x, it tells us that x is the number of lawns. So we're going to say the domain, the independent variable, is the number of lawns. It's labeled with an x, okay? This situation we are going to say is discrete. And we're going to say it's discrete because even though Cody could mow only a part of a lawn, nobody's going to pay him for that. So if you're out mowing lawns, you have to mow the full lawn to get paid, right? Okay, because it's discrete, we're going to use that's wrong. Because it's discrete, we're going to use set notation. That means we're going to list all of the options that he can mow. So the number of lawns he can mow, it says he can mow up to 50. So Cody could choose to mow 0 lawns or 1 lawn or 2 or 3 or 4, or he could follow in that pattern until he hits 50 lawns for the week. That's our domain. The verbal description is that Cody could mow 0, 1, 2, or so on to 50 lawns. Okay, but now we're being asked to find the range. The range for this situation is going to be the y values, and the y values are the dependent variable. Okay, so we need the dependent variable. We know that we're using f of x instead of y, and that function is describing the amount of money in dollars. So the dependent variable is labeled f of x, but it's going to stand for the money Cody earns. If the domain is discrete, then the range is also discrete. So these have to match, okay? Now, in the domain, we found the number of lawns that he mowed, but in the range, we need to take this number of lawns, and we need to figure out how much would he get paid for so many lawns. So if he mowed 0 lawns, he get paid $0. If he mowed 1 lawn, he'd get paid $20. If he mowed 2 lawns, he would have $40. 3 lawns would be $60. And so on until if he mowed his 50 lawns, he would make $1,000. Okay, now, in the calculator, you can do that by putting this equation, 20x, and then looking at the table. 1 is 20. Well, first 0 is 0, 1 is 20, 2 is 40, 3 is 60. Then if you go all the way to 50, so if you second window, and you go to 50, at 50, why didn't that work? He's got $1,000, okay? So our verbal description is Cody could earn $0, $20, $40, $60, or he could follow in that pattern all the way until he got to $1,000. Okay? All right, next question. Gabriel's family is taking a road trip to San Antonio. His family is trying to budget the amount of money they need for gas to get there. Depending on the route they take to get there, they can travel between 267 miles and 289 miles. The cost of gas is a function of the number of miles they drive and can be represented by the equation. This should be C of M, C of M equals 0.20 M, where M is the number of miles they drive. So first I need the domain. The domain is going to be the independent variable, and normally it's x, but here it's m. And this says m is the number of miles they drive. So I'm going to label my independent variable as labeled m, and it's miles they drive. So when we talk about the domain, we're talking about how many miles they drive. This situation is continuous. And it's continuous because you could drive a whole mile, or you could drive half a mile, or you could drive 0.1 of a mile, right? It just kind of depends on how you stop. If it's continuous, we have to use inequalities to talk about our numbers because there are too many to list. So we say that all the miles driven, have to be in between. This says he can go between 267 miles and 289. So he's going to drive somewhere between 267 miles and 289 miles. So our verbal description is Gabriel's family will drive between 267 and 289 miles. Okay? Now the range is always the dependent variable. Okay? And our dependent variable is going to be C of M. Well, we are talking about the cost, right? So the cost of gas. So we're going to say the dependent variable, C of M, represents the cost of gas. So as they drive the miles, they're going to have to pay for so much gas. Remember I told you that if the domain is continuous, then the range is also continuous. Which means we still need an inequality notation because we can't list all of our costs. So the cost of gas, the cost per mile, is going to be somewhere between. So I need to figure out what is the range when the domain is 267 and what is the range when the domain is 289. So in my calculator, I'm going to type this equation, 0.20m, 0.20x. Okay, I'm going to look at the table, but I need to change my table. I need 267. So if I set my window to 267, it's 53.4. So $53.40 is what the gas will cost if I only have to go 267 miles. If I have to go 289 miles, then it's going to cost me 57.8. So $57.80. So our verbal description is the gas for Gabriel's trip will cost between $53.40 and $57.80. All right, next. The daily cost of hiring a plumber Y to work X hours on a repair project can be modeled using a linear function. The plumber charges a fixed cost of $80 plus an additional cost of $45 per hour. The plumber works a maximum of 8 hours per day. The equation used to represent this situation is Y equals 45x plus 80. So first, the domain. The domain is always the independent variable. We have X, and our X stands for X, hours. So our independent variable labeled X, and it stands for hours worked. It's how many hours the plumber works, okay? Okay, now continuous or discrete. The plumber will get paid for the amount of time it takes him to fix the problem, right? If it takes him 1 full hour, he'll get paid for an hour. But if it only takes him a half hour, you still have to pay him the half hour. So this one, unlike the mowing of the lawns, it's continuous. If it only takes the plumber 5 minutes to fix your problem, you still have to pay him for the 5 minutes, okay? If it's continuous, we have to use inequalities to talk about our problem. This says that he can work a maximum of 8 hours per day. So the plumber can choose to work between 0 and 8 hours any day. So our description is the plumber can work between 0 and 8 hours. All right. Now the range is always the dependent variable, and our dependent variable is labeled y in this problem, and y is the daily cost. So for the range, we are talking about the y, and we're going to find the plumber's daily cost. Or you could say the money he makes or the cost you have to pay, right? If the domain is continuous, then the range is also continuous, which means you have to use inequality notation again. So all of our y values, the cost of the plumber, in order to figure out how much the plumber makes or how much I owe the plumber, I need to use my domain values to find the range values. Remember we talked about that? So I'm going to take my equation, plug it into y equals. Well, it's pretty easy though, right? If he works 0 hours, he's going to make 0 amount of money, right? So then if he works 8 hours, we're going to type this equation in. And then we're going to go to the table, and I need to find 8. So we're going to reset that to 8. So if he works 8 hours, it's going to cost me $440. Make sure you include those. And we're going to say you owe the plumber somewhere between $0 and $440 is the max it would cost, okay? So then the next one, the very last one we've got, says the total cost of hiring a painter is a function of the number of rooms they paint. The painting company charges $80 per room up to a maximum of 5 rooms, plus a $35 hiring fee. This can be represented using the function C of R equals 80R plus 35. We want to know the greatest value in the range. This is a lot like the questions we did on your last test. So first, you box the equation. Then you highlight, you want to find the range, and you highlight the part of the table that answer is going to come from, okay? My range is labeled C of R. So I'm looking for the total cost. Now, R is the number of rooms, right? And it says that he has a maximum of 5 rooms. So 80 is already used, 35 is already used. 5 rooms is what we're talking about here. So in your calculator, if you type 80x plus 35, and you go to the table, then you're going to find where x is 5. Go back to the table, and it's going to cost $435. So your answer here is $435. That is the maximum that it could cost, all right? And that is it.